Hi guys, if you want to improve in Rocket League, optimizing your camera settings can have a big impact in your gameplay. In this video I'm going to explain each of the camera settings, and we are also going to take a look at what camera settings pros are using. I have analyzed pro camera settings and calculated both average and the most common values of each setting. Let's start with camera shake. Camera shake just shakes the screen whenever you dodge, boost or hit something. There's really no benefit in this effect, so most pros have this turned off, and I recommend you to do that as well, unless you really like this effect. Next is the field of view, also known as FOV. Field of view is an angle which determines the area that you can see. A small FOV gives you a very narrow zoomed in view, but a large FOV lets you see much more of the arena. This is one of the most important settings to change from default. Most pros are using the maximum field of view because this gives you the clear advantage in the game, as it makes much easier to keep track of the position of teammates and opponents. Large FOV also creates a fisheye lens effect, which distorts the object at the edge of the screen. Let me demonstrate. If you look at the ball, its shape gets distorted as it moves to the edge of the screen. For this reason, some pros have lowered their FOV slightly from the maximum. Default FOV is 90, and my recommendation is the maximum 110. But if you want to go lower, try to stay above 100. Camera distance determines how far from the car the camera is. High camera distance helps you to see more around the car and behind your car, which can help in seeing when the opponent is challenging you from behind or from sides. A close camera gives you a larger view of your car, which can be helpful in hitting the ball more accurately. Default setting is 260, Pro average is about 270, and the most common Pro setting is 280. However, it's interesting to notice that the pros that have been most successful recently appear to be using more close cameras. For example, 4 out of 6 players who made it to the RLCS 4 finals were all using 260 distance. The other 2 were using 270. I personally use 260. Camera height determines the height of your point of view. A low camera brings your car more to the center of the screen, and high camera makes your car go to the bottom of your view. Default camera height is 100, and most pros tend to stay slightly higher at 110. If you use a small camera distance, you also might want to go lower camera height, or the car might go too low to the bottom of the screen, which might make it harder to hit aerials. If we take a look at the same pros that we just looked at, those who use 260 camera also have 100 height instead of 110. For the same reason, I personally keep it at 100. Some players who specialize in 1v1 like to use very high camera, such as 150 or higher, because it helps you to see behind the ball when you're dribbling the ball. Camera angle determines how much of the camera is pointing towards the ground. Most pros keep this at the default shallow angle of -3. However, some prefer a larger angle, such as -6, because it also allows you to see behind the ball better. Some 1v1 specialists like to go to an extreme angle of -10 or even -15 to get an advantage in dribbling. You have to be careful with this because it can really hurt your aerial accuracy. Stiffness has two main effects to the camera. First, it changes the camera distance depending on speed, and secondly, when ball camera is turned off, it smooths out the sharp turns. Let's look at the distance first. At 1 stiffness, the camera always keeps the same distance no matter how fast you go. At low stiffness, the camera distance increases as you go faster. At extreme stiffness of 0, the distance increases more than 100 when you go full speed. So if you set your camera distance at 260, it will be more than 360 when you travel at maximum speed. Changing distance of low stiffness can make it harder for you to hit the ball consistently. However, most pros still prefer to keep the stiffness around 0.4. One benefit of low stiffness is that you can see much more around your car when you go full speed, but you still have the great accuracy of a close camera when you go slower. Let's look at the other main effect of stiffness. When ball camera is turned off, high stiffness keeps the camera always exactly behind the car. This causes the camera move wildly with the car when doing quick turns, especially with power slide. With lower stiffness, your camera follows the car more softly, which allows you to do very aggressive drifting without having your camera go all over the place. I personally like this softer approach, and I would keep my stiffness at 0 if it didn't change the distance with speed. Swivel speed determines how fast the camera turns when you use your controller's swivel function. Default is quite slow at 2.5, so most pros have it a little faster. For pros, the most commonly used value is 6. I don't have swivel mapped to my controller at the moment, so my setting is irrelevant. Some people claim that this also changes the speed of the camera when you're not swiveling, but I've looked into this and I haven't found any evidence that this would be true. With transition speed, you can set how long it takes to switch between ball camera and car camera. At the default setting of 1, the camera switches slowly, and as we increase the value, the transition happens faster. Transition speed 2 removes the transition part entirely and switches between the cameras instantly. A slow transition gives you the benefit of being able to look around the field as the camera is turning. This can give you information about teammate and opponent positions. I personally think the instant transition at 2 feels great when catching the ball and switching into a car cam for dribbling. I would use transition 2, but since I don't use the swivel to look around, I really need the extra information that the turning camera gives me. I ended up putting it to 1.5. It's nice and fast, but slow enough that I can still see everything as the camera is transitioning. Most pros use the default transition speed of 1. A few pros use slightly higher, but nobody uses 2. I hope that this tutorial gave you information that helps you to find your optimal camera settings. I recommend you to experiment different settings and try to find the one that works for you. Just keep in mind that it takes time for you to get used to the new settings, so it's a good idea to give the new settings a few days before deciding that it's not working. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a like, and if you have any comments or questions, write it in the comment section. I will read every comment. Have a nice day.